Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Learn English with Podcasts.
Hi, everyone. So good to have you here today.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Sarah, and before we dive in, quick note for anyone watching on YouTube.
Yes, good call.
If English isn't your first language, you can always turn on the subtitles. Just hit the CC button at the bottom of the screen, and you'll get a real-time translation while you listen.
Super useful, especially for this kind of episode where we're going deep into vocabulary.
Exactly. Okay, so today's episode.
I'm excited about this one.
Me too. But first, I have to ask you something.
Go ahead.
Did you go anywhere recently? Because you look, refreshed.
Yes, actually. I just got back from a work trip.
Oh, nice. Where?
Barcelona.
Oh, come on. Barcelona in the spring?
I know. It sounds glamorous, but it was genuinely a work trip.
Sure it was.
It was. Full days of meetings, training sessions, workshops.
But also tapas?
Also tapas, yes.
I knew it.
Look, you have to eat.
Of course. So tell us about the trip. What happened?
Okay, so the first day was actually a bit stressful. I arrived, I'm jet-lagged. Well, not really jet-lagged, it's only 2 hours, but still, I'm disoriented. And I have this workshop to run in the afternoon.
Right, so you're scrambling.
A little bit, and the venue, it wasn't where I expected it to be. The address they gave me pointed to a completely different building.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I'm standing in the street, looking at my phone, looking at the building, and none of it is matching up.
What did you do?
I asked someone at a cafe nearby, and she was lovely. She pointed at a building down the street and said, "That's the one, the blue door."
See? People are helpful when you're lost.
They really are. So I found a place, got set up, and the workshop went really well, actually.
What was the workshop about?
Communication strategies for international teams. And at one point, the facilitator said something that really stuck with me.
What did she say?
She said, when something goes wrong in a team, the instinct is to point at someone, to find who's responsible. But that doesn't solve the problem.
That's a really good point. Pun intended.
Very good. And she was right, because in the afternoon session, something actually went wrong.
Oh, really? What happened?
So, one of the participants pointed out that the data we were using in one of the exercises was outdated, like significantly outdated.
Oh, that's awkward.
Very. And to her credit, the facilitator didn't panic. She just said, "Thank you. That's a fair observation," and she adapted on the spot.
That's impressive.
It really was. And then someone else, this guy from the German office, he pointed back to a similar issue they'd had 2 years ago.
Ah, so it wasn't the first time.
Apparently not. And that was actually useful because it showed there was a pattern, not just a one-off mistake.
Right, the same problem surfacing again.
Exactly. And the facilitator used that moment really well. She said, "This points to a deeper structural issue in how data is shared across teams."
So she turned the mistake into a learning moment.
She did. And that phrase, "this points to," that's such a professional way to say something. It doesn't attack anyone. It just identifies a cause.
It's analytical, not accusatory.
Exactly. And by the end of the day, everyone was energized. It was one of those workshops where you walk out feeling like something actually shifted.
I love that.
And then the topless.
Obviously.
Obviously. But here's the thing that struck me during the trip overall. The verb to point came up constantly in meetings, in conversations, on the street, someone literally pointing at a building, someone pointing out a problem, someone pointing back to a past decision.
It's one of those verbs that just works everywhere.
Everywhere. Physical situations, professional contexts, academic language. It's incredibly versatile.
And that's exactly what we're covering today.
5 phrasal verbs, all built around to point.
5, which sounds manageable.
Very manageable. But don't let that fool you. Each one has a distinct meaning, and the particle changes everything.
That's the key with phrasal verbs, right? It's not about memorizing a list, it's about understanding the logic.
The particle tells you the direction tells you the meaning.
Point at, point back, point out, point up, point to.
5 directions, 5 meanings.
And once you see the logic, they click.
They really do. And what I love about this particular family is that these verbs show up in very different registers.
What do you mean by register?
I mean, some of them are casual, like point at. You'd use that in everyday conversation. Someone pointing at a menu, pointing at a map, pointing at a person.
Very physical.
Right. But then you have something like point to, which sounds more formal, more analytical.
Like in a report or a presentation.
Exactly. The data points to a clear trend. That's business language.
And knowing the difference, that's what helps you sound natural in English, whether you're in a casual conversation or a boardroom.
That's the goal. Natural, confident, precise.
Which is also kind of the goal of this whole series, right?
Absolutely. 30 families of phrasal verbs. Real English, real contexts.
And by the end, you'll have a vocabulary that actually works in the real world.
Not just for exams, although for exams too.
Very much for exams, these verbs show up constantly in TOEIC and IELTS comprehension sections.
So you're building 2 things at once, exam readiness and real-world fluency.
That's the combination you want.
Okay, so we have 5 verbs to get through, and I want to make sure we give each one the time it deserves.
Agreed. No rushing.
Each verb gets a definition, real examples, and the logic of the particle.
So you understand it, not just memorize it.
Because understanding is what makes it stick.
And sticking is what makes it useful.
All right, stay with us because the teaching section is coming up right after this. And trust me, after what happened in Barcelona, I have plenty of real examples to work with.
Love it. The trip that keeps on giving.
Exactly. See you in a moment.
Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back, everyone.
Okay, let's get into it.
5 phrasal verbs with to point.
And I love this family because, honestly, these are verbs you can use immediately.
Right after this episode, in your next meeting, in your next email.
That's the goal. Let's go.
To point at.
Simple, physical, and very common.
To point at someone or something means to aim your finger or your attention directly at a specific target.
You're identifying something precisely, a person, an object, a place.
Don't point at the client during the presentation.
Right, it's a bit rude to literally point at someone.
Very rude, actually, in most cultures.
But you hear it constantly. Point at the screen. She pointed at the exit.
Or in my Barcelona story, the woman at the cafe pointed at the building down the street.
Perfect example. She didn't describe it, she didn't give directions, she just pointed at it.
Exactly. Direct, precise.
And the particle at?
At insists on the exact target. You're not pointing generally. You're pointing at something specific, a precise destination.
Like an arrow, it lands somewhere precise.
Exactly. So, point at means to aim at a specific target, physically or figuratively.
Second one, to point back.
Oh, this one is really useful in professional conversations.
It is. To point back means to refer to something that happened in the past, to draw a connection between a current situation and a previous event or decision.
It's about context, history. You're saying this didn't come from nowhere.
The consultant said that this issue pointed back to last year's decisions.
You see what that does? It links the present problem to something earlier.
It gives it a cause.
And that's incredibly useful when you're analyzing a situation, in a report, in a meeting, in a debrief.
Another example, this recurring error points back to the training gap we identified 6 months ago.
Now, suddenly, the error makes sense. It's not random. It points back to something real.
And the particle back?
Back evokes a return toward the past. You're moving backwards in time to find the origin of something.
Like retracing your steps.
Exactly. You go back to find the source.
So, point back refer to a past event or decision to explain a current situation.
Third one, and this one you absolutely need to know for your exams.
To point out.
To point out means to highlight something, to draw someone's attention to a fact, a problem, a detail they might have missed.
You're making something visible. You're pulling it out of the background and saying, look at this.
She pointed out the team's mistakes during the review.
She didn't hide them. She didn't minimize them. She made them visible.
And in my Barcelona story, the participant who noticed the data was outdated. He pointed it out.
Which was actually helpful, even if it was uncomfortable in the moment.
That's the thing with pointing things out. It can feel uncomfortable, but it's almost always useful.
I need to point out that this deadline is not realistic.
And it opens the conversation.
The particle out?
Out gives the idea of extracting something, pulling it out into the open where everyone can see it. You're making something that was hidden or overlooked visible.
Bringing it to the surface.
Exactly. So, point out equals highlight a fact or problem. Draw attention to something important.
Fourth one, to point up.
This one is slightly more formal. You'll see it in written English, reports, articles, editorials.
To point up means to emphasize something, to underline its importance, to make sure no one misses how significant it is.
It's stronger than just mentioning something. When you point something up, you're saying, this matters. Pay attention to this.
The CEO said that this incident pointed up the importance of safety protocols.
He didn't just mention the protocols. He used the incident to drive home how critical they are.
It's like using a highlighter on a key sentence.
Exactly. Another example, these results point up the need for a completely different strategy.
Not just a tweak, a completely different approach. The results make that unavoidable.
And the particle up?
Up gives the idea of raising something, elevating it, putting it in a higher position so it can't be ignored.
Like raising your hand so everyone sees it.
Exactly. So, point up, emphasize strongly, underline the significance of something.
Last one, number 5. And this one, I think, is the most elegant.
To point to.
To point to means to suggest or indicate a cause, a trend, or a conclusion. It's analytical. You use it when evidence leads you somewhere.
It's not about physical direction. It's about logical direction.
Exactly. The data points somewhere. The results point somewhere. The evidence points somewhere.
The manager told us that the report pointed to a lack of efficiency in production.
The report didn't accuse anyone, it just indicated something, logically.
It's neutral, objective, which makes it very powerful in professional contexts.
Everything we've seen so far points to a significant shift in customer behavior.
You're not guessing, you're drawing a conclusion from evidence.
And the particle to?
To expresses direction. You're orienting attention toward a destination, toward a conclusion, toward a cause.
The evidence travels in this direction. Follow it.
So, point to, indicate or suggest a cause, a trend, or a conclusion based on evidence.
All right, 5 verbs. Let's recap quickly.
Fast round, just the verb and the core meaning.
Point at.
Aim at a specific target, physically or with attention.
Point back.
Refer to a past event to explain a present situation.
Point out.
Highlight something, draw attention to a fact or problem.
Point up.
Take note of this.
Point to.
Indicate a cause, a trend, or a conclusion based on evidence.
5 verbs, 1 root. Completely different situations.
And what I love about this family is the progression.
What do you mean?
Well, point at is the most physical, the most concrete, someone literally pointing their finger.
Right. Very visual.
Then you move to point out, which is still about making something visible, but more intellectually. You're highlighting a fact.
Then point back, which is about time, going backwards to find a cause.
Then point up, which is about intensity, raising the stakes on something important.
And point to, which is the most analytical, the most formal, evidence pointing toward a conclusion.
It's like a journey from the physical to the intellectual.
I love that framing. From a finger pointing at a building in Barcelona to a report pointing to a systemic issue.
Same verb, completely different worlds.
And that's exactly what makes phrasal verbs so fascinating, once you stop being afraid of them.
They're not random. They have logic. They have a story.
And once you see the story, you remember them.
Which is why we do this.
All right, everyone. Now here's your challenge before the next episode.
Yes, pick 2 of these verbs, just 2.
And write 1 sentence with each one, in English, about your own life, your work, or your team.
It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be yours.
And if you want to check your understanding with a proper quiz,
Head over to the article linked below this video.
you'll find everything we covered today written out with a 5-question quiz to test yourself.
It takes 5 minutes, and it makes a real difference.
Because hearing something once is a start. Testing yourself is what makes it stick.
That's how you move from passive understanding to active use.
And active use is what you need for your exams and for your real conversations.
Okay, thank you so much for being here today.
Seriously, every single episode, you show up, you listen, you do the work.
That matters more than you think.
Language learning is a long game, but every episode gets you closer.
Keep going. You're doing great.
See you very soon for the next family.
Take care, everyone.
Bye!
Bye.